Well, hello, this is Michael Bloom, and welcome to our webinar so you can learn the 4 steps to creating a caregiving success plan. And thank you so much for coming. I just want to say that just to do a bit of housekeeping first, and I want to welcome you. This may be your first Google Hangout webinar. I'm using a service called Webinar Jam, which runs on the Google Hangout platform. And for some of you, this may be your very first time. So I'm going to display a message which will give you directions, because sometimes when we run these Hangout webinars, it's technology and I'm live. Things can happen. But on your end, if you're sharing bandwidth on your internet with other folks, which could be in your home where you may be most likely watching this, a lot of times the bandwidth can be drawn away. So if you're seeing any freezing or buffering or having any sound issues, just feel free to go and watch this live stream broadcast on YouTube. I've actually, the link to the direct YouTube link is right there. And also, as we're getting started, I would love to know where people, are attending from. We had people sign up from various places around the globe, and I feel so honored. So feel free, if the chat box should be enabled. Let me see here. I'm not noticing it on the screen, so I want to make sure that the chat box is enabled. I'm going to scroll down. It is now. So we have a live chat box. So feel free to say hello, that you can hear and see me fine, and also just let me know where you're watching me from. And again, I'm so glad that you're here. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I do have some slides to share tonight to walk through the 4 steps of the Caregiving Success Plan, but I will come back on camera periodically. Feel free to type your thoughts or questions into the chat roll at any time. I will look at those periodically, but I will make sure to cover every question at the end. I anticipate this will not take much more than an hour. I'm going to strive to be within the hour, but if people have some lingering questions, I will certainly stay on. One of the beautiful things about this service is you've registered, you will get a clean replay shortly, within a few hours after this broadcast, so you could certainly watch it later at your convenience. But for those of you who stay until the end, I also have a nice goodie gift for you. So I'm happy to share a gift that could maybe help boost your energy in your caregiving world. So I'm going to go ahead and share my slides. And let's see, we'll get this working. And we should be up. Looks like it's up on my end. So again, I want to thank you for coming, and thank you, Alva, for typing in that you're watching from Swampscott, Massachusetts, here in my home state. So thank you for typing in. I know using the chat roll could be a bit different for some of you who may be using this webinar service for the first time. So again, I want to thank those of you that are here. So again, let's get started with the webinar content for tonight. So I also want to take a moment and just thank you. Thank you for taking time, whether you're watching this on the replay or you're here with us live this evening. I just want to thank you for taking some time to come and attend this webinar. If you are currently a caregiver, I know that your life is really busy. You have many competing demands for your time, and your time is valuable. And I want to make sure that you get the most out of tonight, of learning about some new resources maybe you're not aware of, and that you also can get any of your questions answered, because my goal for tonight is that you leave here with more energy than when you started with. And thank you for chiming in, Robin, too. Robin, you actually used a question function, which is a great thing at first, and then you restate it. If you mark, don't worry about clearing anything off. You don't have to worry about that. But just so you know, you can mark your comment as a question. It kind of highlights it to the presenter like me that you have a question. But even if you just type it as a plain old comment, or anybody does this, I will see it. I will make sure to get to it. So thank you so much again for chiming in. I also want to take a moment and recognize, for those of you that are being introduced to me for the first time, I do have this caregivingwithoutregret.com business, and I'll talk a little bit more about my life as a caregiver. But the other thing that you should know is that I do have some other folks here attending this session tonight, either live or on the replay, because I've been training people about how to use Google Hangout webinars in their businesses, especially mission-driven business owners. So some of them are attending tonight for the experience just to observe and learn how this process can work. So we have a mix of people. But again, I believe that even if you are one of those folks, the next quote may have you falling into one of these categories, because even if you're not currently caregiving, caregiving affects everyone. In fact, currently in the United States today, there are more than 65 million people serving in the role of a family caregiver. And one of my favorite quotations comes from former First Lady Rosalind Carter. And she actually said there are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. I just really love this quote. I'll say it again. There are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. And I really believe that's so true. In fact, I have the honor and privilege of speaking to many live audiences. And when I get in front of a group of young people, especially a group of college students, and I'm speaking to people who maybe have no thought about caregiving in their world. I know when I was a college student, the whole thought of caregiving in my life didn't even enter my thought process, didn't even enter my brain. But when I meet with young people now, I treat them kind of like a dean of a law school or a medical school who may say, look to your left and look to your right. 1 out of the 3 of you may not be here when you graduate. Well, you know what? I say to them, look to your right and look to your left, because at least 1 out of 3 of you will be serving as a family caregiver at some point in your life. And the reason that is, the statistics show that currently in the year 2015, there are 7 people to care for every elder or person with disability, elder over the age of 80 or a person with disability. There's 7 available people to care for one of those people who are elderly or have a disability. By the year 2030, that ratio will be 4 to 1. And by the year 2050, that ratio will be 3 to 1. So that's why when I talk to today's college students or young folks, I let them know that they could be stepping into the role as a caregiver. So this webinar this evening is for you if you're currently serving as a caregiver for a loved one, and that could be a child with special needs, an elder parent, a spouse who's ill, or a loved one who's returned, one of our treasured veterans who's returned injured from serving overseas, or somebody who suffered a traumatic brain injury. There can be many reasons as to why people enter the caregiving world. So again, if you're currently serving as a caregiver for 1 or more loved ones, this will be for you. If you're just beginning the journey of as a caregiver as a result of the illness, injury, or disability of a loved one, I often equate getting into the caregiving journey as jumping into a swimming pool. When one of our loved ones has a problem, we don't test the waters to see that they're comfortable first. We just jump into the deep end, and our life is forever different. And when we're in the very beginning of the journey, we can feel very lost and alone and scared. This webinar could also be for you if you've been providing care for a while and are feeling tired and stressed. I've worked with and known many wonderful people who serve loved ones who have Alzheimer's or dementia or Parkinson's disease. You know, many caregiving situations can be short in duration, but when you serve someone who has a long duration illness or disability, that can be a decade or more of service. So you may be a more experienced caregiver, but if you're one of those people, I'm so glad you're here this evening. This webinar may be for you if you want to find some good resources for caregiving support, but you don't know where to start. I mean, there's a jungle of information or big blue ocean in the internet for resources, and there's lots of great things out there. I'm going to point out a few good key resources tonight that could be really helpful for you in your caregiving journey. And you're not really sure what to expect, but you're open to possibility. And this is a special shout out to those of my friends that are checking this Hangout webinar for the purpose of learning how to conduct one. Maybe you're not sure what to expect, but you're experiencing, information about caregiving for the first time. I guarantee you, either you down the line or someone you know or care about can benefit from this information. So what are you about to discover tonight? You're about to discover the foundation for thriving as a caregiver, even if you currently understandably feel frustrated a lot of the time. You're going to learn about an effective process for communicating with other family members and friends so you can get the support you need when you need it. One of the biggest frustrations I hear from caregivers that I've had the privilege to coach is that generally there's a primary caregiver that steps up to the plate, that does most of the work, and when they seek help from other family members, it doesn't come and they feel disappointed. But I want to share tonight an effective process that's really worked with some of my clients to help them get the support they need when they need it. The next thing you're going to discover is some key resources that are available to organize and put necessary documents in place to seamlessly care for your loved one and take care of household, medical, and financial obligations. So you're going to learn about that. So I'm going to go over and share some of my favorite resources a bit down the line. So stay tuned. And toward the end, I'm going to give you the greatest caregiving burnout busting strategy that I know from personal experience and from working with others to keep you energized to provide the highest quality support. And for those that stay to the end, I'm going to be providing a free gift for those of you. And I think it's a kind of a little bit of a cool gift. So stay tuned for that. I love to reward live attendees, especially with a nice freebie. So thank you again for coming. So let me take a moment and discuss my own road to thriving. And Joanne, I see a comment in here. Is there anyone on here? We do have a number of people attending the session tonight. So thank you for posting in the chat. Hopefully you can hear and see me just fine. So there are folks that are here. And thanks, John, for chiming in that you're here too. So some people are experiencing this webinar service for the first time and may not know how to use the chat. But again, there are a number of people here and I'm grateful for you coming. But let me talk about my own road to thriving. I was a primary full-time live-in family caregiver from 2009 to 2012. In fact, the image that you see there is a picture of my parents, affectionately known as Sunny and Bunny Bloom. They were Irving and Bernice Bloom, affectionately known as Sunny and Bunny. I'm an only child. And back in 2009, this picture was taken about 6 months. We were at a family baby shower for one of my cousins. And this picture was taken about 6 months before my dad became terminally ill. In fact, both of my parents are 82 years old in this photo. And at the time, my mother was a 5-year cancer survivor. She had stage 4B lymphoma. My dad had served, which she had survived and fought successfully in 2004. On the other side of treatment, although she survived, she became very frail and weak and needed full physical support for many of her activities of daily living. And for the next 5 years, my father served as the primary caregiver, and I was working in the field supporting individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and I provided a secondary caregiving role. I was living in my own home at the time. But my dad, one summer day in August of 2009, had a catastrophic heart failure incident. My mother called me in a panic. She didn't understand why my dad was acting strangely. I rushed over to the home to see what was going on. I lived about 5 miles apart. I called 911. When the EMTs came out, I thought maybe my dad had a stroke from the way he was acting, but it wasn't a stroke. He only had a heart rate of 25. It was a catastrophic heart failure incident. And that, after he got treatment, had a pacemaker put in. Because he had oxygen deprivation to the brain, probably that started overnight, he ended up with vascular dementia. So he could no longer take care of himself. Therefore, he couldn't take care of my mother either. So from that day forward, I stepped in. I actually put my career aside, and I, for the next several years, entered a caregiving journey, initially for both of them. And then after my dad passed, it was just for my mom. In 2011, I actually launched a caregiving coaching and consulting business. My dad was already passed away at that time. I had gone for coach training, decided to launch a coaching and consulting business, and the main motivation was to have a flexible home-based business so I could care for my mom and keep her out of a nursing home, and that's why I launched the business. After my mother passed in 2012, I wrote my first book and published the Accidental Caregiver Survival Guide. That's a picture of the cover in 2013. And I then moved my business into full-time work, and I had great success with marketing my book. I've had the privilege and honor to coach some wonderful caregivers from around the world. I've done dozens of live speaking engagements, and it's really catapulted me into a new level of success. And I never, ever could have imagined being an entrepreneur before my journey as a caregiver began. And because I've had online marketing success, I co-founded another business in 2014 called hangoutsthatconvert.com. And some of my friends that know me from that business are coming to see this webinar tonight. So thank you again for coming. I just want to say, as with most caregivers, and my journey was no different, it wasn't always easy. In fact, my father's journey with vascular dementia was extremely scary and very sad. In fact, it took all of my energy and strength and every tool that I had in my tool belt, from supporting amazing people with disabilities and their families over almost 20 years. All those tools that I had in my tool belt really equipped me to care for my dad. But I tell you, until I started caring for my parents in such a direct way, I then grew a new appreciation for what it's like for a family member to care for a loved one. And like I said, the journey was scary because I had all of this experience and knew well the Aging and Disability Services Network, having led large teams of staff and programs. And I'm an only child. I tried to do it all myself initially. And I tried to, as many caregivers do, take it on and myself. And I had very little sleep. I was really bad when it came to my diet. I had significant weight gain. I was not taking care of myself during those initial months. I tried to be, Superman. When people asked me how they could help me, I didn't even know how to answer them. I just said, I have it under control. I can do it. People thought I was doing a bang-up job. And you know what? I really was. My parents were well cared for. But the bottom line with all of this was not a sustainable pathway. And actually, after a couple months after my father passed, I got significantly ill. I came down with shingles, and I actually went to see my physician. And when I went to see my doctor, he had no idea. I had not been seeing him for a while. He had no idea I was being a caregiver. Obviously, it was all the stress from doing all the care myself that led to my illness. And that was really a wake-up call to me to say that I need to really try to do things differently. Because when I was doing some research in caregiving, I actually found out that 1 out of 5 primary caregivers pass before the loved one they're caring for. 1 out of 5, that's 20%. And you know what? My dad was one of those people, and I didn't want to become a statistic like that either. And my mother's health over the course of those next few years became more and more fragile. She needed increasing levels of physical support, lots of appointments. She had a recurrence of cancer, and she had a bout of pneumonia that was very scary. So I walked hand in hand with her through some of the scariest times. I would not take any of it back. But again, initially I was on my own, but I realized it needed to change. The turning point for me was in the year 2010. I pursued coach training. And in 2011, when I launched my business, I developed a caregiving support plan, put my own team in place. I created a support team. My mom's nickname was Bunny. It was called Bunny's Helpers. And but when I sought support from wonderful people who were willing to support me, friends, cousins, other family members, and started to organize support, it actually took me off of what I refer to as caregiver isolation island. In fact, caregiver isolation island, if you're on this island currently, grab the torch. It's not like Survivor. You don't want to survive and stay on that island. Grab the torch and run. It gets so much better when you can add people into a support team and organize it and lead the efforts as a caregiver. You're still doing a lot of it and most of it yourself, but it makes a difference when you have support. So, and that really led to things getting much better. I sought support so I could, in 2011, pursue personal and professional goals. I had people that would be willing to stay with my mother for periods of time so I can go and pursue other opportunities, so I could get trained in life coaching. I even started to go away for some retreat weekends and other family members and friends. And sometimes I paid for support for people to stay with my mom. And my mom actually was very open to me pursuing other opportunities. She wanted me to have a full life too, but she always knew she was still my number one priority the whole way through that journey. and she got the best of me. Even though I was imperfect, I tried to do things the best I could. We had a really great relationship, but it made it so much better when I had others to help me. And as I gained these experiences and started to support other caregivers in my caregiver coaching business, it really meant a lot when I formed a bit of a community and could support fellow caregivers who were facing similar challenges. So I just want to say that, as you can see, it wasn't always easy. I never would have imagined my life moving in a direction of passion, but it did. But the important thing I want to close my story with is you can do this too. And the reason I'm saying here your way and with the right support is, in fact, I want to come off it back on camera for a moment. I want to hammer this point home. And hello, I know some people have just joined in late, so you're seeing me. I want to mix this back and forth between slide presentation and me on camera. But I want to say too, and thank you again for listening to my story a bit, but I want to help caregivers, and when I speak to them or coach them, I let them know that was my journey, okay? No other person or caregiver is going to have the same journey as me, and I would never help them set up the same way I did. It was my life, my care partnership with my mother. The idea is when you have tools and resources in front of you, is you can start to think about what is the best way to develop a caregiving success plan that meets your needs, help you meet your personal and professional goals, and care for your loved one in a way that you can be proud of. I mean, that's really what this is all about. And there is no, every journey is different, because you know what? My journey, my life is different from your life. So we all have a unique path that we're going down. But the other thing too, I had 3 dedicated years of my life to caring for both of my parents for a period of time and then just my mom. But I know many caregivers out there who are devoting years, many more years than I did, or even a decade or more, whether they're caring for someone in their home that they may take in. I know that I've been doing some work and wonderful work with people who are what's known as shared living providers, who welcome adults with disabilities into their home. They get a stipend, but they care for them just like a loved one would care for the individual. And again, if you are entering a role of care, whether it's somebody that's a blood relative, a friend, or somebody who's been a complete stranger that you take in, it's so important that you do it in a sustainable way and that you take care of yourself along the way and have goals, because that time you will never, ever get it back. So we all in the role of caregivers deserve to live life to the fullest. So I'm going to step back to the slides. So just give me just a hot second here. And here we go. The slides should be back up. And let's get into the juicy and practical caregiving success plan strategies. After all, that's why I've invited you to come here tonight. So let's get into these 4 strategies that I wanted to share with you. The first step is to embrace the choice you are making to serve as a caregiver. Embrace the choice you're making to serve as a caregiver. I cannot, initially when I jumped into the role myself, and my dad had that catastrophic heart failure incident, okay, I jumped in as an only child, and I didn't really view myself as having a choice. I felt it to be my duty. I needed to do that. I should do that. When I was getting up every day to do things for them, it seemed like a need. But you know what? I really was making a choice to serve. I've worked with other caregivers, and one of the reasons they feel so down, this is really a mindset issue, is they feel trapped. They feel like they don't have a choice other than to step up to the place to serve, in place to serve. But the bottom line is you do have a choice. You're making a choice. If you wake up in the morning and you make a choice, I mean, you may have your morning routine, but you can choose whether to engage in your morning dressing routine or not. You choose what you wear, hopefully, what, brushing your teeth, all of those things. We make choices. You're making a choice to, to serve. And I think that's so important. And from mindset, one of the things that I find is that when we think in choice language, which is I choose to, okay, it's so much more energizing than I have to, I must, or I should. In fact, when we say I have to, I must, or I should, Should statements are so negative, not just to use with others, but even to use with ourselves, because we set ourselves up with judgment about what we should be doing. But if you realize and proudly state that you're choosing to engage another day, and I know maybe feeling gratitude may be hard, because I know when you're in the midst of caring for a loved one that's going through some very, very scary challenges. And believe me, I had dark days when I thought that the dark clouds of doom were hanging over our home, because just when I thought we were making progress, another major setback would come my mom's way, and that would lead to more in-depth support. And for me to get involved in, in-depth care support and some medical type treatments that I never would have expected that I would step into doing. But when I looked at this as I'm choosing to do this, and in fact, I will say too, even from my own experience, my mother several times, because she cared about me, wondered if, in fact, I'll come back on screen again because I just want to say this. And my mom on a few occasions would say to me, "Are you sure that you don't want to put me into a home?" And I remember saying to her, no. I mean, I was proud to keep her in her home, to help her age in place and to have the dignity of living in her home. But I made sure to ask her, I said, "Well, do you want to go in a home? Because the bottom line is the person that you're supporting should get to choose where they want to be too." And she said, "Oh, no, no. I just want to make sure." But I think sometimes she could see the weight and the burden that was happening to me. She was with me after my dad passed. I was still caring for her, and I had a very painful bout of shingles. So she knew the toll. But once I started to change my mindset, and I've seen this with other caregivers as well, and this is easier said than done, when you realize you're making a choice and you alone are making that choice to step up each day and do the things that you do, it's a much more energetic and powerful way to approach the day. You actually look at yourself and your experience in a much more positive way rather than a have to. Because the bottom line is you didn't. I didn't have to continue. Other caregivers I've worked with could make a choice to have their loved one go into a nursing home or have a different care situation. Okay. You don't have to, there may be consequences. There may be financial issues involved and other things. There can be consequences, but I really, really want to hammer home the point that you're making a choice. And if you're here and that kind of resonates with you and you realize that you've made a choice, or you feel like you've, experienced some times when you've, maybe felt down in your role, and you feel, you've experienced that yourself, feel free to say, Chape, I understand, in the chat, or yes. Again, I love to hear from you, because I know from working with a number of caregivers and not just doing it myself, that those are normal thought processes. And the other thing that happens too, in this process, when we are in the caregiving role and we engage in an activity of fun or something outside, or do something unrelated to the caregiving role for us, we can actually experience guilt because we're choosing to do something in that moment that's different. I had those feelings too, but you know what? You're making choices, and it's good to restore your energy. And I'll get into that a little later on in one of the other success plan strategies. But let's go pop back to those slides again. And I want to say too, one of the big things to helping you get more energy in your role is to be clear, is to get clarity in your role. That's really the key to having success with the first step of this plan, okay, is to bring clarity to your role. Because a lot of caregivers, when they enter the role, there is no job description. Okay. When you enter the role as a family caregiver, I mean, I know those folks that maybe here that have, in a more professional way, or have done adult foster care and a shared living situation, they probably have some form of a job expectation agreement. But when we're stepping up to plate to care for a loved one who is born with a disability, it becomes ill, gets struck with cancer, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, some sort of, brain injury, returns from war, with an injury, we don't get a rule book. We don't get a job description. So when we feel down, a lot of it happens because we're failing to meet expectations that were never clear to begin with. So one of the things that I have found from my work with others and myself is I've actually developed a Caregiving Without Regret manifesto. And that's the free gift I'm going to give you all to access at the end. And you will get, I'm going to give you a link at the end of this presentation so you can get it. The reason I love the manifesto, and I'll talk about it a bit more at the end, is it provides some statements that you can use as a guidepost that can, it starts kind of an expectation agreement for yourself. And that you can add to. There's blanks within the document that you can add other statements and kind of make an expectation agreement for yourself. Because the best way that you will know that you're meeting expectations as a caregiver is for you to set them yourself. And I really find that to be so important, because otherwise you're so overwhelmed with everything that you're doing, and you're doing it all. I know, as most family caregivers are managing a household, sometimes managing more than one household, managing their loved one's life, everything associated with it, vehicle issues, budgeting issues, food shopping, all kinds of things, plus all the medical appointments. It's great to have an expectation agreement. And Alva, thank you so much. Oh my goodness, Alva, your mother is 101 years old. Well, bless her, and bless you for stepping in as an only child to take care of her too. That is really wonderful. And you do have a choice, and I'm sure your mother is very, very thrilled to have your support as well. So let's move on to step number 2. Step number 2 is one of the most complicated ones. It tends to be the one that gets most primary caregivers down, which is get the help you want when you need it. I mean, even once you get to the point, when I first started in the caregiving role, people did sometimes ask, how can I help? You get this general question, what can I do? I was so overwhelmed in the beginning and thought I could handle it all. I didn't even know what to say. I'm an only child, and Alva's an only child, right? Who's here with us this evening. Some folks come from larger families, and I've worked with primary caregivers who have multiple siblings. And what I often find happens in those situations is there's a primary caregiver who steps into the role. They have their way of doing things. They're very involved, okay? And when they ask for help from other family members, those other family members don't necessarily step up to the plate in the way they would like. So they get caught up in this feeling that they're not getting help when they need it. So let's talk about this in a little more detail, because there can be a lot of disappointment and frustration. Like I said, Alva, you and I are only children, and that's a blessing and a curse. Okay, the blessing is, the curse is we're initially on our own unless we create a caregiving support team, which is what I did to get some other help, and I organized those supports. But the blessing is you don't have other family members to argue with. If you're caring for an elder parent, because you're really the only one, you can become the primary decision maker. So, but what I have found in families that are larger is not everybody tends to be on the same page. And this is really, really understandable. And it's so important. So how can you overcome this disappointment? Well, one of the things that I find, and this is true for any caregiver, take some time, and I've done this with those that I coach with, to try to help them organize their activities. Make a list of everything that you do. You don't have to create it all at once. Kind of brainstorm a list. Perhaps take a few days. And, of all the activities that you do, not just in your caregiving situation, but everything you do to manage your household and other household support needs, just make them at large, direct caregiving responsibilities and sort of ancillary things. Categorize it like a menu, meaning put them into categories. Which of those tasks that you do you do on a daily basis? Which do you do on a weekly basis? What do you do on a monthly basis? And what did you do on an as-needed basis? You can then organize it, do this all on, pen and paper, organize in a way that has a whole list of activities. And, but again, start initially over a few days, just brainstorming, just add things to the list as you think of it. And even once you come up with what you think is a final one, it's not like you can't add to it going forward. But here's the key. When people ask you if they want to help you, because I found many people that are associated with like a church or spiritual organizations or others often like to provide support in spiritual organizations or friends, families, other volunteer organizations. And you don't know what to have them do. But if you are able to share your menu of tasks and let people choose an item that they could help with, they're more likely to love doing that because they feel they're skilled at it. They have the time to do it, and they'll sign up to do it. You'll get the help, something off your task list handled, and that'll start the ball rolling with doing more. I find this works great with other family members, especially siblings and families, because if the primary caregiver would take time to make a list, what ends up happening, and I'm actually going to come back on camera to hammer this point home a bit again. What I found from my experience in working with caregivers who have multiple family members who can contribute is when they have something they want somebody else to do, they tend to direct it. So they tend to call a brother or sister and say, Mom has this appointment. Can you take her? And then the person, for whatever reason, may not be available, may be busy, who knows what the reason is, says no. Okay, it might not be that task. So again, the primary caregiver said, oh my goodness, every time I ask to do something, I get this no. They never step up to the plate, and this causes disharmony, disagreement. Well, perhaps you've asked somebody to do something they either don't have time for, they don't feel skilled to do. What I have found is that if you take time to share a list with family members or even post it online, and I'm going to give you an online resource to be able to do that in a little while, and you share it with others, people, even your family members that maybe don't typically contribute, would be willing to step up to the plate and take something they're willing to do. And I guarantee you, once they do something once and you feel good about it and you chime in very positively, reinforcing them for stepping up to the plate, it becomes contagious that they may want to do something else. Because the bottom line with all of this, there are no shoulds. We tend to sit in the shoulds of, I'm doing all these things and my brother, sister, whoever else should be doing these things too. Well, you know what? There are no shoulds in life. We are all only responsible for ourselves. At the bottom line with all this, we're only responsible for ourselves. Again, when you're stepping up to the plate to serve, you're making a choice. If you want to encourage other people to help and be part of your caregiving support team and part of this success plan, make a list and let them self-select what they want to do. That has been the biggest strategy. I found this to work with a number of families. I even had it work in a situation where two siblings didn't even talk for a decade, but actually restored a relationship from using this process of involving choice. You know what choice does? Everybody loves to have choice. We don't like to be told what to do. Whether we're 3 years old, we're 30 years old, or we're 70 years old, we don't like to be told what to do. When we give somebody a choice to let them self-select what they want to do, it makes a world of difference. So I encourage you to try that strategy and see how it works for you. I'm going to go on again with the slides. So we should be back on here. Excellent. All right, let's move forward again. Step number 3. Step number 3 is to create and implement a support plan. Create and implement a support plan. This made all the difference in the world for me once I, started to organize my help into more of a support plan. So in the beginning, and you don't need anything fancy to do this, it just takes a notebook and a pen. That's really all it does to start with. You can actually just make a list and of all the different activities, again, that you did. You've got your menu. And the other thing I say to do with the support plan is you can actually, once you start to get people to volunteer to do certain things, then they become members of your support team. And you may actually think of folks in your family that may be good at certain things that you can sort of offer them choices of things to do, and they'll become part of your support plan. It's amazing how this can start to grow when you take a little bit of time to organize this. I also want to take a moment to share one of my favorite online resources. It's called lotsofhelpinghands.com. It's 100% free for caregivers. lotsofhelpinghands.com. And don't go there now. Feel free to check that out after the session is over. But when you're at lotsofhelpinghands.com, you can actually get information to set up your own online community where you can organize all your activities, get people who are part of your support team to sign up with an email address, and you can actually notify members of your support team when there are activities that come up that you need help with, and they can sign up automatically. So you could just ask people. I created a community of support called Bunny's Helpers based on my mother's nickname, and I had a number of people sign up. When I had an appointment or something come up or something I needed to do, I could actually post a date and time where I needed support in the activity and just pop it out to the members that were part of Bunny's Helpers, and somebody could just step up and volunteer, and it was covered. I didn't have to make 5 or 6 phone calls. So here's something else I want to say too with all of this, with the plan, with whomever you share with, whether they help you or not, and this is the hardest thing to do, share without expectations. Don't have expectations that people are going to step up and do certain things. I know that's hard to say and hard to deal with, but it's really so important to keep your own sanity because your anger and disappointment is only going to pull yourself down. So try to build on the positive. I guarantee you can, people will start to step up when you offer people choices and you form a bit of a plan. Feel free to get an accountability partner. I mean, I'm a coach and I am a natural accountability partner for people, and stay inspired into action. Want to say something else with this too. Wasntofhelpinghands.com. Maybe you're not so tech savvy. One of the things I like to share with caregivers, we often don't think of younger members of our family as being able to contribute. We may not want to burden them with caregiving responsibilities or other things, but I'll tell you, many young people are extremely tech savvy. And I'll tell you, a grandson or a granddaughter to an elder, I many times would love to contribute into support. So one of the things you could potentially ask for support with from them, who may be more tech savvy, is to manage your online community through wasntofhelpinghands.com. They can coordinate that. You can feed them information on an occasional basis. They can enter it for you. It's a great thing. So maybe they're not doing direct caregiving responsibility. And the great thing about wasntofhelpinghands.com too is they don't even have to be in your geographic area. I mean, you can communicate with them. They can be in another part of the country and still be helping you with the coordination of that online community. So I just want to bring to mind, or an adult sibling who may not live near you, but maybe could help with some of the coordination. When you have an online community or a partner that you can connect with that can help with communication and organization of resources, it takes a bit of the burden off of you. I know one of the big things that happened with me when I was caring for my mother, and especially when her cancer came back and there were many things that were happening, so many people would want to know. I could just type a journal update from the hospital room my mother was in online on the computer into my wasntofhelpinghands.com community, send it as a broadcast message, and all the members would get my update. I didn't have to make a bunch of phone calls. And for people who weren't a member of the community, we had people assigned because I had senior family members too that don't even use the computer. So I had targeted people that would communicate with them directly, if I didn't have the time. So it really made things a lot better, and it got a whole lot more people involved. And I've found this to be really true with others that use that resource as well. So let me go back once again to the slides. So let's go into step number 4. Step number 4 of the Caregiving Success Plan is develop your passion and your purpose beyond caregiving. So very important, because you're never going to get this time back. You're in the journey. It's so important that you live your own life as fully as possible while you're a caregiver. I know it's hard. You can still be all in for your loved one, but it's so important to take time for yourself. One of my mantras that I love to share, and it's a chapter in my book, The Accidental Caregiver Survival Guide, is put chocolate in your pillbox. And the reason I use this as a mantra is when you're a caregiver, and those of you who've been, if you're currently in the caregiving role, you're well familiar with pillboxes. I was filling 2 of them for a while. I used to do them in my career for the people with disabilities I supported. Would administer medication. We didn't fill pillboxes, but we administered it at the time of dosage. But for my parents, I would lay them out in advance and make sure. I seemed like I was forever dealing with medication. The reason I like to say dose yourself regularly with joy, think of the pillbox as your calendar. And I'm a chocoholic, so chocolate brings me great joy. So think of the chocolate as an activity in your calendar that brings you joy. So very important. And this leads to that number one burnout busting strategy that I talked about. It comes right from put chocolate in your pillbox, which is put at least one fun, feel good activity in your calendar or planner each week. Make you a priority. You really deserve it. I'm going to come back on camera again. I just want to say it's so important. Our calendars get filled with all those have tos, the medical appointments, the other appointments and chores we must do. If you have some home health folks coming in, you got to mark all those. The calendar gets filled with all of these have tos, and must. And if our calendar week after week, month after month does not have anything that's fun in it, what do we have to look forward to? So critical. We're in the summer now. We're listening to this this summer. I hope if you're in the role of a caregiver, you have something planned that's fun for yourself this summer. You deserve it. Give yourself a break. Put something fun in your calendar and find an accountability partner or others who will help you do it. I know one of the things this was probably one of the hardest things that I've done and other caregivers have done when we're so into our loved ones' needs. And when we do engage in activities out of our caregiving responsibilities, I brought this up earlier, it's easy to feel guilt. I used to feel guilt sometimes when I did finally take time for me and go out and actually have a good time or go for a weekend retreat. I used to take these weekend retreats for life coach training that I did in 2010 and 2011. And initially I felt some guilt from doing that, even though my mom actually, I found great people, other family members and friends would step in and do shifts with her. They tended to all be female. So she kind of had girls' weekends when I would go away. So she was well cared for, and I was just a phone call away if help was needed, and I would check in. But I initially would feel guilt for taking time for me, even though she was well cared for. That's a natural thing, but it's so important to stay energized. And if I had not taken that time for myself, and my mom did support that, I would not be living a full life now. I wouldn't have set myself up for the passion beyond my direct caregiving role. I now fit, you remember Rosalind Carter's quotation that I shared at the beginning? I'm now one of those that has served as a caregiver. I'm no longer currently serving as a caregiver, but I do believe the reason my life is so full is I did things at the end of, in the latter half of my caregiving journey to put me as a higher priority on the agenda. And my clients and others that I have the privilege to work with, I encourage them to do the same and shed the kilt. So let us go back. I'm happy to answer, people are sitting back kind of quietly, but if you have any questions, you just feel free to type them in too. I want you to take a moment and imagine, if you have felt, disappointed because others are not stepping up to the plate to help you, which is understandable, or disappointed that you've sacrificed all these months or even years and really put yourself on the back burner. We can't get the past back. We cannot do anything to change anything that's happened. But imagine, going forward, even starting as soon as you get off this webinar tonight, if you could do one thing, think about something enjoyable that you could do for you and put it in your calendar sometime and find somebody to help make sure that you get that to happen. Because imagine a life where you have people stepping in, supporting you as part of a caregiving support team, and that you're able to get help when you need it, that you want, and that you can start living a more full life for yourself, because after all, you deserve it. And that can very well happen if you put a success plan in place. So I truly want to do that. Oh, I'm sorry, Joanne. I'm going to step back for just a moment. I see her question. Strategy number 4, step number 4, we're going back for one moment because I got the question, is develop your passion and purpose beyond caregiving. Develop your passion and purpose beyond caregiving. And again, that comes from putting the chocolate in your pill box, okay? And put an activity in your planner. But here we go. Let's go into this now. I want you to have the best quality of life possible. You can take those 4 steps that I've given you tonight and start to implement them on your own. But I want to help you develop your own caregiving success plan, so you can thrive with some road-tested resources, okay? And I'm in the process of developing something new called the Caregiving Thrive Up Kit. And it's going to be a first of its kind program. And I'm actually going to come back on camera for a moment again. I just want to talk about this. I've been blessed in that I started my caregiver coaching business in 2011, while I was still caring for my mom. My mom actually passed on Mother's Day of 2012, and it was initially a part-time venture. And then, I started initially supporting some, caregiver coaching clients, and it's been a really great experience. I wrote a book. I've done more speaking engagements, and I've had sessions with so many caregiver busting, and caregiver recharge sessions with a bunch of different caregivers. One of the things that I have found, I want to help as many caregivers as possible, but many caregivers are financially strapped. Okay. And even I put my career aside to step in and care for my parents. In fact, eventually I put my house in the market and I moved in with them. But I put my career aside. So I know many caregivers, and there are statistics that show that caregivers really take a financial hit when they step into a primary caregiving role because they reduce hours of work or they leave the workforce, which I did for a period of time. I've been very fortunate in that my business has been successful and I've moved to full time. But one of the things I've discovered is most caregivers cannot afford to work with me one-on-one. Okay. And I'm not one of those coaches or marketers that's out there that tries to encourage caregivers to put themselves further in debt by hiring me as their coach, for help. I know that I can be helpful, but I don't want them to do that. So I've been trying to think for the last year or so, how could I offer something that's an affordable solution for folks that they can get support in a group way with some of my best resources at a very affordable price. And I'm happy to bring this live. So that's why, so let me take a moment with your permission to talk to you a bit about it. So, because we're going to bring my vision to life. And the reason I said in the slide before, I just want to go back, it's a first of its kind program. Those that step forward in the program, and it's actually going to launch live a week from today on Wednesday, June 24th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time will be the first live session. But the members that participate in this live are actually going to have an opportunity to co-create the program because I have resources I'm going to share. I have already a curriculum established, but I want to make sure, just because things have worked one-on-one with folks individually, I want to make sure that it works in a group setting. I want to make sure that everybody that's part of this program gets the most out of it and that it can help as many caregivers as possible. So for those that will take this journey with me, I will feel entirely blessed because you're going to help me make the program even better over time. So let's talk about how it's going to work. There are 4 core modules that align with the 4 steps that I shared before. And in these modules, you're going to get all the resources, strategies, and live support through webinars just like this. In fact, there'll be an opportunity for questions, open Q&A, and group coaching to maximize success with the following. You're first going to implement your caregiving expectation agreement so that you can avoid conflict and burnout. Make caregiving expectations very clear to yourself, to the loved one, if they can understand that you're supporting, and for your other family members and members of who will be your future support team. This is a really important step. The second module will be to determine your caregiving mission statement, and we're going to use it as a guidepost because what I have found has been really helpful. Caregivers, the first 2 modules are really formed on getting clear on expectations and transforming your mindset from that of have to, feel responsible for, need to choose to energetically do what you're doing, and also inject passion into your caregiving role. I have found this to be such a transformative process, and we're going to bring this live in this session in Module 2. Module 3 we're going to go and do a deep dive with how you can execute. You're going to have an opportunity to start to develop your own caregiving support plan. So you can identify, I have an editable form that you're going to get that's going to help you organize all those activities and help you identify the key people in your life who can help you take care of those activities. I've outlined already what are key activities that caregivers choose, but the support plan is editable, it's customizable, and you can make it work for your exact caregiving situation. And we're going to help you with all the coaching you need to make sure you can execute a great caregiving support plan. And the final one is, because it's so important, is to put chocolate in your pillbox, again, to fuel your soul during the caregiving journey and beyond. We're going to look at what makes you most passionate. One of my biggest frustrations in working with caregivers is I found that they tend to put some great hobbies and interests aside when they enter the caregiving role. And they often, I actually... a couple years ago, and this story always sticks out in my mind. It's not even somebody that I directly coached, although we had a coaching conversation, I guess you could say informally. I was participating in the annual Walk for Parkinson's here in Massachusetts, and this wonderful gentleman was walking, and he was caring for his wife, who was further along in the Parkinson's journey. He had retired a couple years earlier, and I had asked him what he liked to do most, because it was beautiful weather, and he told me golf. And he had not been golfing for a few years. One of the things he was expecting to do in retirement was to go golfing. And we had a conversation. He had done it in a few years because he didn't feel he could leave his wife alone, and he felt guilty. And I thought that was very admirable. So I asked him, you're no longer golfing, which is great. You've sacrificed this for your wife, which is wonderful. But when do you think you'll golf again? And his response to me, I don't know. I guess when I'm not caring for my wife anymore. Well, that could still be many years to come. And so we talked this through about, well, don't you deserve a little time for yourself? Maybe it'd be unrealistic. Maybe in your retirement, you thought you'd golf 3 to 5 days a week, but maybe you could golf once or twice a month in the good weather. So we kind of talked that through, and he seemed to get energy about figuring out that he was worth it. And that's what I'm talking about, putting the chocolate in your pillbox to fuel your soul, because even his wife will want him to do occasional activities to enjoy, so he feels refreshed when he comes back to care from her instead of resentful. And this is one of the biggest things. So each of these modules is going to have in-depth live training, and there will be time for coaching and questions to come about. And it will be really great. We're going to make this very interactive besides me just sharing. The other thing that will be shared during this is you're going to find some of the best caregiving resources. I have an in-depth caregiving resource list of online, many of them free resources, like Lots of Helping Hands that you can use. I'm actually going to do a bonus session. I haven't mentioned this here, but for those that want to get trained in how to use lotsofhelpinghands.com, I'm going to do a bonus session after the 4 modules where we'll go into detail about how you can use this in your own life. And I will be doing occasional sessions. I just want to say too, with special bonuses that folks will get in the program, to ensure you get live support, we also are going to have a private Facebook group. So if you are a Facebook user, you're going to get membership into a private group just for members of the Caregiving Thrive Up Kit, where you can post questions at any time between sessions and even after our 4 live sessions are over. And you'll get support from me and also fellow community members, because I really would like to make this community as well, because I cannot think of a better community than fellow caregivers. The next item will be, again, the live webinar sessions. There's going to be 4 core modules, and I plan to have a monthly group coaching and training session throughout the remainder of 2015. The 4 live sessions are going to run every week, every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, starting Wednesday, June 24th, and they'll go the following 3 Wednesdays afterwards. All of those live training sessions are going to be put into a member site, and all members will be able to access the replays on demand. And we will have other live sessions at least once a month throughout the remainder of 2015. And I'm already committing to do lotsofhelpinghands.com as one of those training sessions. I'm going to add additional modules and resources to be added, and anybody who joins the program is going to have lifetime access to all updates, any update I make. One of the beautiful things that the reason I want to co-create this program with the new members is I plan to let it evolve over time, but everybody who jumps in early is never going to have to pay again. Will have lifetime access even when I make updates. So what is this fee to enter to get you thriving? The information is going to be at Caregiving Thrive Up Kit.com. I'm also going to take a moment to I'm going to put a pop in. Some people, my colleagues that I mentioned that I could do this, I could envision I could offer this program at $197 plus. In fact, some people think I could offer it at $500. I want to have something economical that gets me fairly compensated, but more important, helps as many caregivers as possible. And I want to get folks in at an affordable rate. So that's why it's going to be just a one-time fee of $97. And I'm going to actually pop in the offer so you could see the exact offer itself will pop in. If you're interested in joining the boot camp, you can either go and check out the details for more info by clicking that link. It'll open up in a new window. Or you can go to caregivingthriveupkit.com if you're watching the replay or just after this session. I will be taking folks into the program right up through up until we get started on June 24th. Would love to have you come. There is 100% money back guarantee for those who participate. So there's no risk with this. I just want to say there's really no risk. You could dive in and try it for yourself. If the product and the support that you get does not live up to your expectations, I am not interested in keeping your money. Okay, you can request a full refund within 30 days of the first live webinar session on June 24th, and I'll refund your money and we'll part as friends. There's really no issue there. But again, I wanted to offer something at affordable rates. So again, it has this zero risk, no worries, 30-day money-back guarantee. You're just making a one-time $97 purchase through PayPal, and that will get you into the system. And if you do sign up tonight, you'll get a welcome email, and I will be providing a lot more information. In fact, I already have about 40 people registered to attend this Caregiving Thrive Up Kit. So I'm looking to add more people. I feel really blessed that people are coming on board. So I have a good trial group to do this with, because I said I really want to make this the best possible caregiving resource that could be in the marketplace today, because I really want my fellow caregivers to get support. And this will be a dream come true to make this accessible to so many more people. So let me talk a moment about what others are saying, especially if you're seeing me for the very first time tonight. There's a woman here named Barb who actually had also been, she actually would have been supporting a parent who was elderly and an adult child with a disability. Not unusual. I've known many people who support more than one loved one at a time. And she had and attended one of my sessions, and I just wanted to share this quote. Michael shared how to take care of my mental and emotional health, something no one had talked about before. He was encouraging and supportive and understanding of what I was going through and how hard it is. I would most definitely encourage anyone who has a chance to attend Michael's training or have him speak for your group, as we could all use some support and energizing in some point in our lives. The reason I love what she had to share is I want to provide some road-tested resources that are there for those that want to take action, but I also want to be here to help you emotionally. This is a really, really, really tough journey, and I know firsthand how tough it can be, and it's understandable to have days that you feel really sad. And I don't want you to feel alone. There were many days in the early part of my caregiving journey I felt alone. And that's one of the other reasons why I've put this out here. Another great quote, that one of my favorite testimonials I ever received, was from a woman named Sandy. Sandy Putnam Franklin's her full name. She doesn't mind me sharing it, so I will. I have the image of the warm chocolate chip cookie. It couldn't give me a higher compliment for a chocoholic, but she wrote that I'm like a warm chocolate chip cookie that offers the delight and perks of a comfort food without the calories. Boy, do I wish chocolate chip cookies did not have calories, because I certainly love my cookies. So now is the time for the free gift. So that I have mentioned. If you actually, and I will do it in a moment live after I come back on camera, but if you click the image that you have in the pop-in and go to the offer page, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, when it looks like this in your screen on this side, you're going to see a PPS statement that says, grab your gift for spending time with us today. Click here. That will allow you to download your Caregiving Without Regret manifesto directly from my Dropbox. Okay, directly from my Dropbox. If anybody has an issue with the download, you just send, I'll put my email in the chat in a few moments. You could just send me an email, and within the next day, I'm happy to email it to you directly. Okay, so again, you will find it at the PPS section at the very bottom of the offer page when you click to go there at caregivingthriveupkit.com. And now let's take some questions. I'm going to come back on camera. I appreciate those of you. We have gone a bit over the hour. I was striving to be an hour here this evening, but I'm back. But I want to thank you very much. I would love to have you join the program. And even if you're watching the replay, or you know, Father's Day is coming up this weekend, and we just had Mother's Day a few weeks ago. If you have a parent that might be going through, you know, serving as a caregiver, this could be a great gift as well. It doesn't have to just be for you. You can enroll tonight, sign up, send me an email. In fact, I will type my email address right within here, which is, my email address is michael@bloomforcoach.com. michael@bloomforcoach.com. And I've typed that right in the chat. So you can just come right and send me an email if you have a question about the program after this. I'm happy to take any questions that you have now. And we'll be happy to do that. So, Joanne, you're asking a question. Michael, will you do anything with documentation for the non-family caregiver? Now, that's a really good question. It might be good, Joanne, if you feel free to either add a clarifying so I understand what you're looking for documentation. I do think that this could apply to people who have others that you may support in a professional way as well, because you'll learn about resources and certainly help you with mindset. I do a lot of training. Organizations bring me in for motivational training and on organizational systems and how to energize their teams. I've been a professional caregiver myself as well, so I certainly know how that works. But I'm open to adding resources. As I said, we're going to co-create the program that could be helpful and creating them. So I want to make this helpful. But either you can type into the chat, Joanne, or you can feel free to just, you know how to contact me. You just feel free to send me an email, and I'm happy to respond to an email. Alva. Yeah, so Alva, you ask a terrific question, a really, really terrific question. So here's what I like about, lots of helpinghands.com. You don't have family near you. Family that's not near you, and I appreciate, because I've been there, still might be able to support you if you were able to use like an online community like lots of helpinghands.com. You might find a family member who's out of the area that might be a bit more tech savvy if you don't feel like you are yourself. It's not really technically complicated. The system that they have is very user friendly. But, you know, again, I think having a system which allows automated emails and even sharing, you would be surprised. And I have found that family members often that are not close by, if they just get some increased communication about what's happening in a way that's non-judgmental or sort of, non-directive, they're willing to step up and help as they can. I don't know if who you're in touch with. It would be neat to talk to you specifically within, if you do join the program, who do you have in your life? If you make that list and share the menu, are you involved in a spiritual organization? Are you involved with some other organization that may be able to help you get some other informal members? The other thing I will say about lotsofhelpinghands.com is you can also post your community publicly. So, and give some background about your situation, and other members of that, of Lots of Helping Hands that are in your local community, if there are any, can actually request to join your community and potentially can be of some support. I have not used that function, but that's very possible there too. But again, I would love to have the ability to process with you how you could do this. And if you need more clarification now, just feel free to type that into the chat. It was a wonderful, wonderful question. And the other thing I say too is, even just feel free to invite friends over if your mother's with you. And again, bless her, she's 101 years old, just to spend time with you. Just invite people over, for a day to watch a movie or to do something and just hang out. Sometimes just having people to come hang out so you don't feel so alone can make such a difference. And you'd be surprised when people will voluntarily kind of step up and then provide some, support with different things. It's great to make those informal connections. We always think that it has to be a formal activity. I want to go back to the story of grandchildren. I think children can become more highly involved in caregiving situations than many families will let them or give them credit for doing. In fact, I've seen some statistics that a significant number of people performing family caregiving duties currently are under the age of 18. They're already involved in some way. And, a child sitting at, watching a baseball game, I'm using that because it's the time of year, with grandpa on the TV while the primary family caregiver is engaged in other activities, is still helping. is still doing something. Grandpa feels good because grandchild is watching the game with him or playing checkers or doing something. We can involve others in our caregiving lives in ways that we don't even think they can be involved. And it really energizes the situation. So I hope that was helpful. And Alva, also feel free to use the email and send more clarification. So I'm going to do another round for questions. I certainly hope this has been helpful. Before I get to the point of wrapping up and wait for questions, if you got a big aha from tonight or have anything to share, I would be ever so appreciative if you feel free to share that in the chat, or if there's anything. The other thing I would say too, I'm not doing this to just share it to get wishes, but hey, I'll just say it. Tomorrow's my birthday. And actually it's interesting birthdays now. I'm an only child and both of my parents are no longer here. And my birthday always falls on or near Father's Day. And I have a lot of great memories of spending joint time with my dad. So this time of year, even though I'm having a birthday, I'm going to make it very fun tomorrow. I'm planning to do that this year. Going to engage in some nice activities for me. I'm going to take care of myself and do some other things. But I just want to say that birthdays and holidays, the reason I'm bringing this up, I know can be, and anniversaries and milestones can be very difficult for caregivers. And although I experience bouts of grief now because I've lost, both of my parents and I miss them dearly, I know caregivers experience moments of grief during the caregiving journey for things that happen along the way. So again, I want you to know that you're not, you're not alone. So my greatest birthday wish for you, and I'm grateful for the many members I already have participating in the program, would love more folks to hop on board, whether you're watching this live or you see it on the replay. I feel ever so grateful to have the group that will be participating next week, because the best thing for me is to co-create this new program, get it out in the world, make it available, continue to make it better over time, much more and even more user-friendly. I'm very open to feedback. It's going to continue to evolve, and we're going to be in the beginning of an ongoing relationship. So you don't ever have to feel alone during the journey going forward. So having said that, I'm just looking to see if I'm going to do a final round for questions or comments. Again, you have my email address. If you have any questions, michael@bloomforcoach.com. And certainly, yeah, and good. Yes, Alva, I really encourage you to check out lotsofhelpinghands.com. Because there's no borders associated with that. I like to say it's caregiving without borders, in the sense that people could be anywhere. I mean, they could be anywhere around the globe and join your community and still be there for some form of emotional support. So, and they have lots of great resources, and it's absolutely free. It's a nonprofit. I like to shout them out anytime I can. It was so personally helpful in my life. And I know other clients who have formed communities, it's been really helpful for them as well. And find somebody who might be out there to help you. And like I said, for members of the program, I'm going to be doing an in-depth walkthrough of that. That will probably be a late July, maybe early August session on Lots of Helping Hands. I want to get through the core modules over the 4 weeks starting the 24th of June. So, and thank you so much for the birthday wishes, all of us. So thank you so much. I think these are all the questions that I see now. Again, I want to be respectful of people's time. I want to thank you for attending. Please feel free to shoot your questions. If I have the honor and privilege to support you in the Caregiving Thrive Up Kit, it would be my great pleasure. And even if I don't, please, I hope this session has given you some value. So no matter what, you walk forward, because I know I will have served my purpose if this has energized you and provided you with some neat resources. So enjoy the Caregiving Without Regret manifesto that you could download right from the offer page. In fact, I'm going to open that up just so you know. It's at, before I go, let me just open up a browser here. Need to open up the page first. I'm actually going to do a quick scroll because I'm going to show people the page. So I'm going to be doing another screen share. Just give me a moment. One of the beautiful things for those of you that, again, are doing Hangout webinars going forward, and I, again, have some guests here that are watching this for this, you can, again, see, you can run a screen, you can show slides, you can go to any URL. And we're going to be doing this when I train people on how to do Lots of Helping Hands. I'm actually going to take them right to the website, create a demo community, and actually walk through how you can do this. So you can do this on your own too. But let me take you to the page. So this is the offer page that you see when you go to caregivingthriveupkit.com. And what I want you to see is that you would scroll all the way to the bottom of the page. And right here is this PPS, and you would just click right there, and it's basically going to open up to a Dropbox folder. So I'm just going to go back to it, but that's what will happen. It will open right to Dropbox, so you can just access file. But again, should you have any issues at all, and of course you could just click here to go to PayPal to enter and grab your spot as part of the Caregiving Thrive Up Kit and Recharge Camp. Again, I'll come back on camera one final time, do a final look to see if there are any questions. And again, I'm so grateful that you've been here this evening. You know how to reach me if you need me. And I guess that'll be it for now. I'm going to get ready to enjoy the rest of my night and get ready to celebrate my birthday and all the great things. I, again, feel very blessed for the many things that I have going in my life, and also for the privilege of spending this time with you this evening. So you have yourself a wonderful rest of the evening or day, wherever you're watching this from, or if you're watching the replay, and go forward with energy and care, fellow caregiver. You deserve it.